Vlad III, Vlad Dracula, Vlad the Impaler. The names themselves evoke chills, conjuring images of shadowy castles, whispered curses, and forests teeming with unspeakable terrors. His legend, a tapestry woven from historical fact and chilling folklore, has captivated and horrified the world for centuries. Vlad the Impaler, the 15th century ruler of Wallachia, a region in present-day Romania, remains an enigma. He was a prince, a warrior, a tyrant, his image forever stained by accusations of unspeakable cruelty. Born in 1431, Vlad III inherited a land embroiled in conflict, a buffer state caught between the powerful Ottoman Empire to the south and the ambitious Kingdom of Hungary to the north. His father, Vlad II, known as Vlad Dracul, meaning Vlad the Dragon, ruled Wallachia under the ever-present threat of Ottoman domination. Young Vlad, along with his brother Radu, was sent as a hostage to the Ottoman court, a common practice designed to ensure the loyalty of vassal rulers. These formative years in the Ottoman court exposed Vlad to the intricacies of power, diplomacy, and the brutal realities of war. He witnessed the Ottomans' military might and learned their customs, but he also experienced their cruelty firsthand. This period sowed the seeds of Vlad's future ruthlessness, shaping him into a ruler who would become known for his iron will and his chilling methods of dispensing justice. But Vlad was not merely a product of his environment. He was a man of contradictions, a fierce patriot determined to defend his homeland from foreign invaders. His story is a complex tapestry of brutality and bravery, of political cunning and unyielding determination. It is a tale that continues to fascinate and horrify, forcing us to confront the darker side of human nature and the enduring allure of the macabre. To understand Vlad the Impaler, one must first understand the tumultuous world in which he lived. Wallachia, his principality, occupied a precarious position in 15th century Europe. Caught between the expanding Ottoman Empire and the rival kingdoms of Hungary and Poland, Wallachia was a land constantly caught in the crossfire of great power struggles. Vlad's father, Vlad Dracul, had navigated these treacherous waters with a mixture of diplomacy and military prowess. He pledged allegiance to the Ottoman Sultan, even converting to Islam to appease his powerful overlord. However, Vlad Dracul also understood the importance of maintaining ties with the Christian West, particularly with Hungary. This balancing act, while necessary for Wallachia's survival, ultimately proved to be his undoing. In 1447, Vlad Dracul and his eldest son, Mircea, were assassinated, likely at the behest of rival Wallachian nobles supported by Hungary. The young Vlad, still a hostage in the Ottoman court, was now without a protector in a world of treachery and violence. The Ottomans, sensing an opportunity to tighten their grip on Wallachia, released Vlad and supported his claim to the throne. Vlad, just 16 years old, found himself thrust into a world of intrigue and bloodshed. He was a ruler without a kingdom, a prince without an army, a pawn in a larger game played by empires. Yet from these inauspicious beginnings, Vlad the Impaler would emerge as a force to be reckoned with, a ruler whose name would be etched in history with both admiration and revulsion. Vlad III, thrust onto Wallachia's throne, faced enemies on all sides. His rule, marked by instability and constant threats, saw him employ ruthlessness that became legendary. It was a raw, brutal form of governance, where fear was a weapon, and public displays of cruelty were a calculated tactic. Today, we might recoil in horror, but in the context of his time, it was a strategy for survival. Imagine rows of impaled bodies, a gruesome forest lining the road to Wallachia's capital, Targovist. This was Vlad's chilling message to would-be invaders and rebellious nobles alike. It was a spectacle designed to instill terror, a warning that transgressions against his rule would be met with swift and merciless punishment. Impalement, a practice not uncommon in the region at the time, became Vlad's signature act of cruelty. Chronicles from the period are filled with accounts of Vlad's brutality. He was said to have dined among the impaled bodies of his enemies, dipping his bread in their blood. While the veracity of such tales is debated, they paint a picture of a man seemingly devoid of empathy, a ruler who used fear as his most potent weapon. His cruelty wasn't random, it was calculated, a means of control in a land teetering on the brink of chaos. This strategy, however, wasn't just about instilling fear, it was about sending a clear message. Vlad understood the power of spectacle, the psychological impact of his actions. His brutality was a performance, a gruesome display designed to break the will of his enemies and deter future rebellion. In the turbulent world of 15th century Wallachia, it was a strategy that, for a time, proved terrifyingly effective. The year 1453, Constantinople, the jewel of the Byzantine Empire, falls to the Ottoman Turks. The event sent shockwaves through Christendom, signaling the rise of a new power in the East. For Vlad the Impaler, the fall of Constantinople was not merely a distant event, it was a harbinger of things to come. The Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed II, fresh from his conquest, set his sights on expanding his empire further into Europe. Wallachia, strategically located on the Danube River, became a key target. Mehmed demanded tribute from Vlad, a yearly sum of gold and young boys to serve in the Ottoman army. Vlad, fiercely independent and determined to resist Ottoman encroachment, refused. His defiance was an act of extraordinary courage, a challenge to the might of the Ottoman Empire. In response, Mehmed launched a massive invasion of Wallachia in 1462. Outnumbered and outgunned, Vlad waged a guerrilla war against the invading Ottoman army. He employed scorched earth tactics, poisoning wells, burning crops, and leaving behind a trail of devastation in the Ottoman army's wake. His most audacious act came in the infamous night attack of June 1462, where Vlad and a small force infiltrated the Ottoman camp, wreaking havoc and nearly killing Mehmed himself. Vlad's resistance, though ultimately unsuccessful in halting the Ottoman advance, became a beacon of hope for those who feared the growing might of the Ottoman Empire. His name, whispered in hushed tones, became synonymous with defiance, a symbol of Christian resistance against the encroaching Islamic power. This clash between Vlad and Mehmed transcended a simple territorial dispute. It became a clash of civilizations, a struggle for the soul of Europe. History remembers Vlad the Impaler for his brutality, and rightfully so. His reign was marked by acts of shocking cruelty, with impalement becoming his gruesome calling card. But what drove this prince to such extremes? Was it madness, sadism, or was it, as some historians argue, a calculated strategy for survival in a world defined by violence? The chronicles of the time, often written by Vlad's enemies, depict him as a bloodthirsty tyrant who delighted in the suffering of others. They recount tales of Vlad feasting amidst the impaled bodies of his victims, washing his hands in their blood, and even impaling his own courtiers for the slightest offense. These accounts, while undoubtedly exaggerated for propaganda purposes, cannot be entirely dismissed. Vlad's upbringing in the Ottoman court undoubtedly left an indelible mark on his psyche. He witnessed firsthand the brutal realities of power in a world where life was cheap and mercy was a sign of weakness. Perhaps, as some scholars have suggested, Vlad's extreme cruelty was a form of psychological warfare, a way to terrorize his enemies and break their will to resist. Yet there is another side to Vlad, a side often overshadowed by his reputation for brutality. He was a devout Christian, known for his piety and his efforts to uphold justice in his realm. He was also a fierce patriot, deeply devoted to his homeland and determined to protect it from foreign domination. Vlad's cruelty, however shocking to modern sensibilities, must be understood in the context of his time, a time when violence was commonplace and rulers often resorted to extreme measures to maintain order. Vlad the Impaler's reign was short-lived. He was deposed in 1462, imprisoned by the Hungarians, and eventually released in 1475. He regained his throne in Wallachia, but was killed in battle against the Ottomans in 1476. Despite ruling for a relatively brief period, Vlad's impact on history and legend has been profound. He left behind a legacy as complex and contradictory as the man himself, a legacy shrouded in blood, myth, and enduring fascination. Immediately after his death, tales of Vlad's cruelty spread throughout Europe, often embellished with each retelling. German pamphlets and woodcuts from the late 15th and early 16th centuries depicted Vlad as a monstrous tyrant, a bloodthirsty madman who impaled his victims for sport. These sensationalized accounts, while containing kernels of truth, served to demonize Vlad and solidify his image as a monster in the European imagination. In Wallachia, however, Vlad's legacy took a different turn. He was remembered not as a tyrant, but as a national hero, a defender of his people against the encroaching Ottoman Empire. his brutal methods were excused, even celebrated, as necessary evils in a time of existential threat. Vlad became a symbol of Wallachian resistance, his image appearing on coins and his name invoked in patriotic songs. The duality of Vlad's legacy, both monster and hero, continues to this day. He remains a source of fascination for historians and writers alike, his story inspiring countless books, films, and works of art. Vlad the Impaler, the man who inspired the Dracula legend, continues to captivate and horrify. His image a reminder of the enduring power of myth and the complex interplay between history, folklore, and the human imagination. Vlad the Impaler's name is forever linked with the most iconic figure of horror, Dracula. While Bram Stoker, the Irish author who penned the Gothic masterpiece in 1897, never explicitly stated that his vampire count was based on the historical Vlad, the connections are undeniable. Stoker drew inspiration from various sources, including Transylvanian folklore and accounts of Vlad's cruelty, to create his immortal villain. The name Dracula itself is a clue to the connection. Vlad's father, Vlad II, was known as Dracul, meaning dragon in Romanian, a title derived from his membership in the Order of the Dragon, a chivalric order dedicated to defending Christendom against the Ottoman Turks. Vlad III inherited this title, becoming known as Dracula, meaning son of the dragon. Stoker, in his research for the novel, came across this name and was immediately struck by its evocative power. Beyond the name, Stoker incorporated elements of Vlad's historical persona into his fictional creation. Dracula's castle, perched high on a desolate mountaintop, bears a striking resemblance to Poenari Castle, a real fortress built by Vlad in the Carpathian Mountains. Stoker also drew inspiration from accounts of Vlad's cruelty, particularly his penchant for impalement, which found its gruesome echo in Dracula's preferred method of dispatching his victims. However, it's important to note that Stoker's Dracula is not a direct representation of the historical Vlad the Impaler. Dracula is a fictional creation, a composite of various inspirations, both historical and folkloric. Nevertheless, the connection between Vlad and Dracula is undeniable, and the historical figure's legacy continues to cast a long shadow over the vampire myth. Centuries after his death, Vlad the Impaler remains an enigma, a figure who defies easy categorization. Was he a bloodthirsty tyrant who reveled in the suffering of others, as his enemies claimed? Or was he a national hero, a courageous defender of his people against overwhelming odds? The answer, like most historical truths, is likely far more nuanced than either extreme. Vlad's cruelty is undeniable. The historical record is replete with accounts of his brutality, of the thousands he impaled, and the fear he instilled in the hearts of his enemies. However, it's crucial to remember that Vlad lived in a brutal age, a time when violence was commonplace, and rulers often resorted to extreme measures to maintain order and protect their realms. Vlad's impalements, while shocking to modern sensibilities, were not simply acts of gratuitous violence. They were calculated displays of power, designed to terrorize his enemies and deter future rebellion. In a region beset by internal strife and external threats, Vlad's ruthlessness was, for a time, an effective strategy for survival. Moreover, Vlad's legacy in Romania is more complex than his reputation as a bloodthirsty tyrant might suggest. He is still revered by many Romanians as a national hero, a symbol of resistance against foreign domination. His image appears on stamps and banknotes, and his name is invoked with pride by those who see him as a defender of their nation's independence. Ultimately, Vlad the Impaler remains an enigma, a figure whose actions continue to be debated and whose legacy defies easy categorization. He was a product of his time, a ruler who resorted to extreme measures in an age of brutality. But he was also a complex figure, a devout Christian, a skilled military strategist, and a fierce patriot who fought relentlessly for the survival of his people. Why, centuries after his death, does Vlad the Impaler continue to fascinate us? What is it about this brutal, contradictory figure that captures our imaginations and compels us to grapple with his legacy? Perhaps it is the inherent duality of his nature, the way he embodies both the horror and heroism that coexist within the human experience. Vlad was a man of contradictions, a devout Christian who committed acts of unspeakable cruelty, a ruthless tyrant who is still revered as a national hero. He was a product of his time, shaped by the violence and instability of 15th century Wallachia, yet his story transcends its historical context. He speaks to something deeper within us, a fascination with the dark side of human nature, the allure of the forbidden, and the enduring power of myth. Our fascination with Vlad is reflected in the enduring popularity of the Dracula myth. Bram Stoker's creation, though a fictionalized version of the historical figure, tapped into something primal within us, a fear of the unknown, the monstrous, and the eternal. Dracula, like Vlad, is a figure of immense power and seduction, a creature who embodies both our deepest fears and our darkest desires. Perhaps our enduring interest in Vlad the Impaler stems from our own complex relationship with power, morality, and the nature of heroism. In an increasingly ambiguous world, where the lines between good and evil are often blurred, Vlad's story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the choices we make in the face of extraordinary circumstances. Vlad the Impaler, the man who inspired the Dracula legend, remains an enigma, a figure who continues to challenge our perceptions of history, morality, and the enduring power of myth. His story, a tapestry woven from blood, bravery, and enduring mystery, will likely continue to fascinate and horrify us for centuries to come.